to me, when you offer a kid, you want people to go, oh shit, Texas just offered some dude. Like, we better look at him. That is not what people think when Texas offers a kid right now. They view Texas as reactionary. They view Texas as they offered Jared Verse after everybody else in college football offered Jared Verse. Be the first to know who Jared Verse is, the first to offer him, and be the school that's like, to me right now, Michigan State and Florida State. It's not an accident that those two schools were among the first to offer a lot of the kids in the portal. They're ready. They're ready. And I don't personally find that Texas is ready a lot of times when guys get in the portal. It feels like Texas, and I get it. Some of it is you don't want to offer an offensive lineman because you don't want to mess up the recruitments of the high school kids that you got right now. But a guy like Jared Verse, a guy that can legitimately upgrade the most important position on the entire defense, of which you started Ray Thornton voluntarily last year. And according to Alex's stats, put up historically low production per snap. I think Ray Thornton was once every 50 snaps, he averaged a play of disruption. You got to upgrade that. And this is a kid that should have been offered 3 weeks ago. This is a kid that should have been visiting Texas before signing day, like he did Tennessee and Florida State. And Texas is in chase mode because they're 3 weeks later on him than everybody else. So
yeah, but Ketch though, but the thing is though, is that Patterson, Sarkisian doesn't really place that big of an emphasis on the portal. He's actually talked about that, I think, in one of his final press conferences of the year, where he kind of said when he thinks about building a program, he thinks about it more through the lens of recruiting than he does the portal. So, and that you could debate whether that's a smart idea.
But he's using the portal now.
Sure.
And if you're going to have to use it, be great at it. Don't suck. Don't be like, we got 5 scholarships left. We have to improve our team, but we don't know where to go. So I guess we'll wait and see if some scrubs off teams that we coached in the past become available, because we know how to spell those dudes' names. You've got to be better than that. And look, I'll say it to Steve Sarkisian's face. You got to get better. This is the wave of college football. Do you think Nick Saban was unprepared when they landed a couple of the biggest guys in the portal that entered? And maybe it's easy to say, well, if Jahmyr Gibbs goes into the portal and he's an All-American level player at Georgia Tech, but they were ready straight immediately. The portal is turning into a feeder system, and the rich will get richer. The poor will get poorer. If you're the rich, Sarkisian wants to be rich, right?
Of course.
And what do wealthy people like more than anything in the world?
Oh, they love their money.
They like to get more wealthy.
Sure.
Do you think the wealthiest people in America look at the pandemic and they're like, oh man, pandemic, that's bad? They've been making like more money during the pandemic than they've made in their entire lives. Pandemic's been good for business. In this scenario, the metaphor is the portal is the pandemic. It's new. Not everybody likes it, but those that are smart can take advantage of systems. And I'm telling you right now, Steve Sarkisian wants to be rich. He wants to have rich man problems. The best thing that he can do is learn to be a wolf in the portal and not a sheep.
Okay, but here's the issue though. Let me jump in.
One of these days, it's going to be real quick. One of these days, it's going to be real important in college football to be a wolf in the portal. And the coaches that don't figure that out aren't going to have jobs.
The thing is, that position that you propose benefits Sarkisian, does not benefit Gary Patterson. That's the only problem with it. It doesn't, because first of all, in many ways, that position is a little bit beneath him. Okay, it's just that is you're talking about a guy who's been a head coach for 20 plus years, now all of a sudden kind of in charge of like scouting and recruiting, which
I'm making him a general manager level.
Yeah, but what he ultimately wants to do is to get back into coaching. And for Patterson, the easiest way for him to get back into coaching is to have his name attached to something that's tangible coaching success on the field, aka a special assistant. For instance, like when he was at TCU, he hired Jerry Kill to be the special assistant to the head coach in charge of offense, which, I mean, that was a title they came up with. Special assistants to the head coach in charge of offense. But here's what happened. The moment that they decided to part ways with Patterson, the special assistants to the head coach of offense became the interim head coach. That's what Gary Patterson wants. Right?
I take your point.
He wants to coach again.
And I'm not saying
that everything benefits UT. It doesn't benefit Gary to get back into coaching.
Here's what I'm telling him, okay? This is me being Sark. I'm saying, Gary, I know that we usually pay these guys like barely $100,000 a year to be the guy that the guys that have formally think they're you in this position. I want to create something historic in college football that's never been done before. I'm going to call you the general manager of our program. I'm going to call him that. And I'm going to say, and the general manager of the program is the number 2 guy in the program. The OC
means number 2 in recruiting.
I mean, number 2 in the program.
But what does he do from a football perspective that in practice or game?
I had to sell him on this idea
that
there's a new frontier for him where he will be ultimately remembered in his life for 2 chapters of work. He'll be remembered for what he did on the field, which might put him in the College Football Hall of Fame. And he's going to be remembered as the first highly paid, way overqualified, $1 million general manager of a college football program, a position moving forward that will be in every major program in America. They will all copy what Texas has done. Nick Saban's going to be like, that's what I need. And he may go get he may go get Charlie Casserly. We'll see colleges go to the NFL to hire people. That this position that I'm suggesting is the future of college football. It is because as it is right now, when Steve Sarkisian doesn't know that Jared Verse exists, part of that is it's like the head coach's responsibility to do everything in college football. They got to coach, they got to recruit, they got to take care of these kids, they got to do TV shows, they got to do all of these things. And you know what else they've got to do? They got to scout kids in the portal and look at film and decide them for themselves. Does this guy fit? Does this guy not fit? I'm taking that out of the equation because the expectation is on Sunday or on National Signing Day, the next time we meet with Sarkisian, if they don't have some dudes in the portal, it'll be like, well, why didn't you find them, Sark? Why didn't you do it? And I think this job is too big. It's like asking your NFL head coach to be completely on top of who they should draft in the NFL. What do NFL coaches do? They listen to their scouts. They listen to people whose only job it is to take that responsibility off of their plate. And then at the very end, an NFL coach will give input on, well, I think this guy could do this. And they will give input, but they don't waste their time looking at everybody. You have to have somebody that looks at everything and everybody. And I'm saying I would sell it to Patterson that this is a new thing. And that across college, you want to get back into being a head coach again, be the general manager of our program, help us build our talent up so that we can be great. And you can be in the NFL potentially at that point. I'm suggesting a job and creating a platform and power We were just talking about your suggestion and trying to figure out whether or not it could even work, because can you have PK work for him and or vice versa? You make him the general manager of the program and you establish from day one, after he is the biggest voice in this program after me. After me. Everybody in the program checks in with Gary Patterson and he's my right-hand man. It's the NFL relationship.
You're paying him for 4 guys, 5 guys a year, 7 guys a year. You're paying him for what, 4 or 5 guys a year in the transfer portal?
No, he's in charge of high school recruiting as well. He's in charge of all talent acquisition.
So he leads the scouting department.
Fuck yeah, that's what I want him to do.
All right, well, here's my closing thought on this. I think Steve Sarkisian views barring your NFL analogy, in the NFL, free agency is viewed as the thing that you go to if you mess up in the draft. If you screw up in the draft, you've got to go into free agency. And the teams that often overpay for free agents, usually the teams that suck for lack of better terms. You don't have, the good teams don't do that. They get their guys, they develop them. There's lots of teams that use that example. I think Steve Sarkisian views it out of the same lens. I think he views the portal totally different than you view. I think
where did Quinn Ewers just come from?
I mean, he came from the portal.
Is going to save Steve Sarkisian.
Correct.
That's
but everybody else who came from the portal ain't Quinn Ewers. Like we could. You just went through a tons of examples of guys like that. Sure. Yes. If there's a certain,
I don't know, man. Who started out the edge last season?
I mean, you
work with me here.
Oh, I mean, Ovi.
Ray Thornton was their their starter at edge all season long. Ovi was their Sam linebacker who occasionally rotated in, although at the end of the year, they mostly just had him playing Sam linebacker and were rotating Jet Bush in with Ray Thornton. Why was Ray Thornton the starter on the defense? Because
this kind of proves this is why I don't think he views.
No, they went and got Ray Thornton in the portal because they didn't know any better, because they weren't prepared, because they had no other options. And they were like, well, we know who Ray Thornton is.
And then what did he do? They signed 6 defensive linemen or 7. What's the number now?
What's that?
But they also went and signed 6 or 7 defensive linemen?
Yes.
So that's what I'm saying. That's why I think his thing is recruiting more so than the portal. I'm not saying the portal isn't important, Ketch. I'm just saying from the vantage point of Sarkisian, and especially as relates to this position, I don't think he views it out of the same lens as you do.
I think he's going to lose his job if he doesn't wise up fast.
Right.
Because we can't even give what are you predicting for the 2022 Texas Longhorns record-wise?
You know what's fun now? That's going to be my Sunday column is going to be the way too early predictions. I'm at 7, maybe 8. Maybe I can talk myself into 8, but no more than 8.
I'm with you. If he goes 7-5 next year after 5-7, recruiting will come to a standstill because he will officially be on the hot seat. They will have to win 10 or 11 games. And you can say, well, that'll be Quinn Ewers' second season. And, that's, of course, those are the expectations. Now, there's a difference between that being the expectations and have to win 10 or 11 to save your job. This is what got Tom Herman and Charlie Strong. Recruiting at some point shuts down, and everybody's like, what's going to happen with the head coach? You go 7-5 this year, and that might be improvement, but that ain't what Texas has paid him to do. 5-7 isn't what Texas paid him to do. I'm not going to pretend that last year didn't happen, and I'm not saying you are. What I'm saying is the margins are going to determine a lot of what is possible with this program. And their ability to bring in starting level talent that upgrades anywhere between 5 to 7 positions. Because Sarkisian made it sound like they might go to 36. My guess is they would go to 36 if it was for the right 36. But from where they are now, they've got 5 spots left. Maybe they could go up to 7. If 6 of those 7 aren't bringing in starting level players that upgrade both your starting lineup and your 2 deep, you're doing it wrong. And if you want to know how you certifiably make yourself 7-5 as the floor instead of 7-5 or 8-4 as the ceiling, being able to upgrade your roster with 5 or 6 players that can do this, and over a 4 or 5 year window, we're talking about 25 to 30 players. That's over the course of a 4-year window. Doing this annually, we're talking about 25 to 30 starting level players that will decide a man's fate as a head coach to get those decisions right or wrong. A year ago, they weren't as prepared as I'm suggesting that they get prepared. And they paid a dear price for that, because when they took Ray Thornton into the portal last year, we argued about that then. We made a bet. And I was like, Ray Thornton is not going to be the answer. He is not going to be able to rush the passer. He is not a guy that's going to get a half dozen sacks, let alone double-digit sacks. And he was exactly who we thought he was. A guy that couldn't get to the quarterback at a position that's the one that has to get to the quarterback. And if they don't get Jared Verse, they've got to go find somebody before August that can be that level of player, because this team might be starting either a true freshman next year or Jet Bush at the edge position. Jet Bush isn't good enough, and I'm not opposed to freshmen starting. You can have an Xavier Worthy every once in a while, but more times than not, it'll be much more like Hudson Card than it would be like Xavier Worthy. You take your lumps. And when you went 5 and 7, I get going young and putting young guys in all over the place, but it comes potentially with a cost. And you know, I don't want to live on the high wire if I'm Steve Sarkisian. I want to do everything in my power to go into 2023 from a position of strength and not a position of, Anyway, that's my last thought.
All right, there it is.
For myself and Anwar Richardson, thank you for watching our little spirited debate. If you enjoyed it, leave some comments. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me blah, 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 blah. I get it. It's hard to be a revolutionary. Who knows?
How many called yourself?
I don't know. I was about to say either that or just stupid. I mean, there can be a real
like the video for that last
sometimes between revolutionary and the county idiot. More times than not, I'm the latter and not the former. But like the video, subscribe to the channel. We've enjoyed performing for you today. For myself and Anwar Richardson, you guys be good to each other. Later.